Welcome to Family Focus. I'm Joyce Johnson, President and CEO of Johnson & Olson Communications and Casting. My guest today is Carl Ralston, and we just realized as we're talking, we went to high school together in the same class. That's how big our class was. But you are the founder of Remember New, and I was just saying how proud I am, because for those that are not familiar with this organization, it really wants to end child sex slavery. And can you tell us, first of all, how this started? You were just a businessman going about your day-to-day life. How did this begin for you?
It was in November of 2003, and I was actually in Chiang Mai, Thailand, learning about work that was going on all over Asia. And the last man that spoke put this picture of New up there with 3 other girls, and he talked about child sex trafficking, which I had never heard about at that point in my life. And he talked about how she started going to the Vietnamese school. She was a Vietnamese refugee living in Cambodia, and how she had become a Christian and started going to the church as well. But her grandmother didn't like that fact, and he said that when she was 13, her grandmother sold her into the sex trade. And when he said that, I just knew that I had to do something about this.
Well, how serious is this problem? And in Thailand, I've heard about many of the cases because I had friends who were missionaries there, actually. How serious is this around the world?
It currently happens to 1.2 million children a year. They enter the sex trade for the first time. And Thailand and Cambodia are 2 of the top 5 countries for child sex trafficking.
Why is that?
Sadly, it seemed like it really started during the Vietnam War, with soldiers being there. And a lot of U.S. soldiers in particular were stationed in Thailand, and especially pilots and stuff, and those working in that area that would do bombing flights. They were stationed there.
What is the life like for a child sex worker?
It is unimaginable. It still boggles my mind that people can do this to people. But a typical day for them, they're forced to service up to 15 men a day. And some countries that can be higher than that, but they're slaves. They're literally sometimes locked in rooms and behind armed guards to get out of that building.
And you mentioned sometimes it's the family themselves that actually will sell their child.
Yeah, that's hard for us to understand as Americans because we have so many options in America to earn money and social programs to help. But in a lot of these countries, they don't have those programs. And literally a family can look at a child as their only asset. And so when tragedy happens, someone in the family gets sick or they don't have enough money to buy food, they will sell that child.
What would be the answer to stopping that?
That's the interesting thing, is it's fairly simple. We know the risk factors that children face that put them at risk of being sold. And so when we find out a child is sold in a village, say here in Wadsworth, we go there, we meet with the mayor of that village, and we tell them that we have scholarships to help children who are impoverished, because that's a common denominator. And then we'll interview children in that village and look for them. And currently at Remember New, we have several programs. One, if the family environment is really causing the risk, we'll actually invite that child to live in a Remember New home. We have 110 of those around the world. If the environment is just poverty, then we'll give a scholarship for that child, which will provide for them to be able to stay in school and provide some food to the family. If there's some family dynamics that make them at risk, like maybe the dad's an alcoholic, the mom isn't able to earn money, she doesn't have any job skills, we'll work with the whole family. We call that family restoration. And then another program we have is foster care. Sometimes we have people that we can trust, that the children from a family that's at risk, or maybe the parents both passed away, or they're in jail for life, or they're drug addicts, whatever, we'll put that child in foster care setting.
It seems like it would be virtually impossible to get out of that life. What happens as you get older? I mean, what is the best way for them? Let's say there weren't intervention groups coming in to help them. How would they ever escape this life?
Sadly, and I've read a lot on this, I've done a master's thesis and a dissertation on the topic, so I've read maybe 80,000 pages on this topic. Sadly, the most common way for them to get out is when they can't be sold anymore. If they get so consumed with HIV that people won't buy them, then they'll just be discarded. But short of that, it's very difficult to get them out. Their families become addicted to the money that they send them, and if they stop sending that money, the family a lot of times will disown them. Sometimes they addict them via drugs. A lot of things that go on in Asia, it's a shame-based culture. And so once they're sold into that, they don't tell people, but they do get money and give it to their family, and that avoids some of the shame. So it's very difficult for them to get out.
And our country also, I mean, we like to think that our country, this doesn't exist. But is this a problem here?
Yeah, in foreign nations, about 1/3 of the people abusing the children are locals, about 1/3 are government officials and police, and the other 1/3 are foreigners. Around the world, America is the second biggest abuser of children in the sex trade in different countries. Korea actually surpassed us. We used to be the worst. The other thing that happens, there's a congressional report I read, and about 12,000 American children are trafficked inside the U.S. each year. So that happens, and then when now they're saying that they've lost contact, depending on who you talk to, more than 300,000 children who have come across the border, and we don't know where those children are. A lot of them have been trafficked, I'm sure.
That is horrific.
Yeah.
That is horrific. Now, and again, I know that runaways are definitely at risk, but sometimes the children are actually lured. Maybe they're runaways, or they want to leave their home for some reason, or a bad home situation. What is that scenario for traffickers to take advantage?
Yeah, when some statistics on that, when a child runs away from home, they're picked up within an average of 2 hours when they land. Like if they leave Ohio and go to New York, statistically within 2 hours they're going to be picked up by either a sex broker or a pimp or a brothel owner in the U.S. The other thing that happens a lot now in America is cyber things. They'll, a 14-year-old girl thinks she's talking to a 16-year-old boy, but it's really a 45-year-old man, or maybe it's a 25-year-old man who is set to pimp her out, but he pretends to be her boyfriend, and before you know it, she's being trafficked. That's very common.
You're watching Family Focus, and I'm Joyce Johnson, President and CEO of Johnson & Olson Communications and Casting. Carl Ralston is our guest today, founder of Remember New. And so you got involved with this because you saw the problem, you saw what was going on. What are some of the things, and you talked about the intervention and some of the things, but what are some of the services that you're providing, and how can people get involved?
Our goal is to meet the physical, educational, emotional, and spiritual needs of our children. So if they're living in our homes, we provide everything: food, clothing, shelter, medical care, dental, everything for them. If they're in a family restoration, we work with that family for usually 2 or 3 years until that child's no longer at risk. And if they're in foster care, the family provides for them, but we financially help. Our organization has been built on individuals who sponsor our children. We have 3 ways people can sponsor a child. They can be a parent level at $60 a month. They can be a cousin level at $40, or a sibling level at $20 a month. And that $120 meets all of the needs of those children around the world. We have about 1,500 children in our full-time care and the foster care and stuff.
Is there a phone number, an address? How would people reach you, or online?
Yeah, the best way is through our website, remembernu.org. Nu is a Vietnamese girl, and her name is spelled N-H-U. So if you look us up online, you'll see ways to sponsor the children or serve or get on our prayer list or go visit homes.
Mm-hmm. And it's not just girls, it's boys also that are impacted by this. I think we need to keep this in mind. The people that are actually buying these children and abusing them, what are the ramifications? I mean, what should happen? How do we catch these people? How do we make them get rid of the people that are trying to purchase kids?
One thing I'm really proud of what we've done in the United States, and Remember Nu doesn't do that, but there are organizations that work on the legal and the political side of this issue. But one of the things we did, and several other countries have done, is we've passed laws that if you abuse a child in Cambodia, you can be prosecuted in America as an American citizen. And so that has happened to people, and that word's spreading. I think that's one of the best things we've done. Also, America will put pressure on countries. They tier them 1, 2, and 3. And if they reach certain levels, America will issue that warning for them, and that can have a lot of ramifications for the countries who are letting their children be trafficked.
Tell us some of your success stories.
Probably the neatest one is the first one. We started our first home in Cambodia with Nu's help, and we took in 15 girls from her neighborhood, which was a little town called Suay Pak, suburb of Phnom Penh. And at the time, 77% of those children in that area were being sold into the sex trade. It was a hotbed.
I am shocked to hear that.
Yeah, it was really neat though, because we took them in and they knew what they were being saved from, even though their average age was 12 at the time. Youngest, I think, was probably 8, oldest about 15. They knew what they were being saved from, and the success part of that is we had a reunion about 17 years later. My wife and I were there, and 12 of them came out to meet us in Phnom Penh, and all of them but one were married. First and only marriage for each of the 11. They were starting to have children, and they were successful. So their lives had been changed forever, and I think if people could be involved in that and see the gratitude of the children, everyone would help keep kids out of the sex trade.
And the trauma of just what they've been through, I mean, they will never forget that, but perhaps they will become advocates to stop it in their own communities. I mean, 70% of one community that's being recruited. How can this go on? How? I just, it's beyond belief.
Yeah, it's pretty eerie. I've been in many communities where you drive in and there's no adolescent girls. There's adolescent boys, There's very young girls, older young ladies, but no adolescent girls. I've been in communities which almost ironically seems more eerie. There's no adolescent boys, because now 30% of the children are boys that are going into the sex trade. So.
Oh, it is deeply saddening. All right, so what do we need to do more of here? What needs to happen, maybe even here in the United States?
I think people getting involved. When I first learned about this issue, I had no idea what to do. I just started reading articles about children's homes, about the sex trade, learned ways to get involved. There are many good organizations that are stopping this. If you're more on the legal side of things, International Justice Mission attacks things politically in that way. If you're more just generalist, there's organizations that help the children but don't house them. We'd love you to be involved with Remember New. We run it very frugally. We don't have a lot of fluff, but since Remember New started with our first home in January of 2007, we've kept over 15,000 children from entering the sex trade.
Oh my gosh.
So.
And that's incredible. And I hear from people, and I don't know if they still do this, and this was in Thailand, which you had mentioned was very bad. They would have, you could pay as an American for a sex tour. Yep. And go on these sex tours. And I don't know all that it entailed, but it seems to be that would be the first place to try to stop this from even continuing.
Yeah, I think there's been a lot done to shut down the sex tours in the U.S., but they still go on. There's a network of pedophiles that are involved that, it's in the dark web, I think. But I have been like in Chiang Mai, Thailand, and I have watched buses of some men from an Asian country, and they actually mix it. They do golf during the day and sex tours at night. I've watched them get out of a bus going into brothels, and there'll be 40 men that were playing golf that day, and now they're abusing children.
Is there anything else that you'd like to add that we haven't touched on that would be important for us to know, either about your work or about some of the victims?
We do prevention. So the only victim of child sex trafficking that Remember New has ever worked with is New herself. All of the other children, we've found them before they were sold. And that's one thing. I think everybody's first initial blush reaction to this issue is to go in and get the children out of the brothels. The issue with that is most organizations, when they do get a child out, lose over 70% of them back to the sex trade for a lot of reasons. Also, when they do get them out, these children are so destroyed physically, emotionally, mentally. You need surgeons to repair damage. It's devastating. I've interviewed people that ran intervention ministries. The other thing is it costs about 10 times as much to get a child out as it does to prevent them from going in. And that's why it's on my heart to prevent it. Is we can end it through prevention. If what you're doing is going in and getting children out, the brothel owner is a business person. They just get more children. And so it creates this bad cycle. And I'm not saying people shouldn't go get them out. It's the worst dilemma that I'm aware of in my life. But I do know when they get them out, more children get replace those children. And
it seems like the government should be helping you with this. Do they just look the other way?
No, I think the different administrations have worked on this problem. Going back to when I was getting involved, Bush did a lot with it. George Bush, he did a lot. I think Trump is trying to do some things as well.
But the head of
I think
Thailand,
Obama did as well.
The head of these countries where people are being taken from their villages, they certainly know this is going on.
They do. The issue is a lot of countries, it seems like an exaggeration, but it's not. They can be 14 to 20% of the gross national product can come from the sex trade, and a lot of that child sex trafficking.
Wow. And again, fostering, ways to help them. The average person, and again, you were a businessman, who are the people that could get involved? Really anyone who is concerned about this.
Yeah, one of my favorite stories was when we first started, I had a 10-year-old girl that wanted to help, and she'd started selling white chocolate suckers for 25 cents. And over a 3-month period, she raised over $300. And at the time, that literally sponsored a child for 6 months, 10 years old, selling quarter suckers.
Yeah.
So.
And awareness, awareness about your organization and what they do. I think the exploitive nature of the people that are doing the sex trade, and really, you're right. Many of the children that were brought over here, crossing the border, no one knows where they're at. Is there a location in our country? The big cities, are those the places that are usually the hubs for this, or are they some of the small towns too?
They literally are everywhere in the U.S. You find it. The largest day for child sex trafficking in America is usually the Super Bowl. They literally bring the children in because it's a crime of opportunity a lot of times. But it can be in big cities, small. It kind of doesn't matter. Now, a lot of times they're selling children online. So,
if someone saw what they thought was an abusive situation with a child, do they just call 911? Is there a special place that they could call or reach out to where it could be stopped immediately, or they could get help and not be, sent from person to person? When they're trying to stop a situation when they see it?
Yeah, I would suggest that that's what they do, is call 911. There are some toll-free numbers that you can call if you see a trafficking situation. I apologize, I don't know those.
Well, there's a universal symbol too, where if you're in trouble, I think, that they do that. And I'm kind of looking for that when I'm out, if someone looks like they're being dragged away by someone. But a young child wouldn't know to do that. You just kind of have to look if they're being really quiet or if something is happening. Can you tell just from looking at a child if they're being abused?
I think you can have an idea, but a lot of children are molested, they're being bullied, they're being abused. So I don't know that it'd be very easy to distinguish.
Oh my goodness. Well, give your information again. So if anybody has a question about this or wants to get involved or help or, donate to this very worthy cause, I think this is incredible. So if you could give your information again.
Yeah, if you go to our website, which is remembernew.org, new being spelled NHU, and you can go online and see ways to get involved, ways to give. If you've got a question for me, I'd be happy to answer it. You can contact us and say this is for Carl, and they'll give me that email, and I answer all of my emails.
Another country, and real quick, we hadn't had a chance to talk about, but India, because there are so many children that are working, being exploited, and of course, the brothels and that country is huge, over 1 billion people.
Yep.
That would really open the door to a lot of kids falling through the cracks.
Yeah, you're very perceptive, because India is also in the top 5, and the other 2 are Brazil and the Philippines for child sex trafficking. Brazil, because there are so many homeless children. India is the worst that I have seen for the abuse of the children. They go through some really terrible things there.
Well, this is, Carl, and again, we went to high school together, and it's like, oh, I hope you go to the reunion this year.
Yeah.
I hope so. This has been just a very needed program. I'm going to say that because there aren't a lot of times when people even stop to think about this horrible, horrible condition. And again, how many kids around the world are we saying, guesstimating?
1.2 million a year currently. Over 30 million, they suggest, have been abused this way.
And it needs to be on everyone's radar because, again, every single person can make a difference.
Yes.
I think that's what's significant for us to, be on the lookout and put a stop to it. Speak out about it. You have a Facebook page also
We
for
do.
this?
Yep.
Okay. And so people can go to this. Remember New. I want to first of all thank you for being a part of this program today.
Thank you.
I know time flies as we're talking about this, but hopefully this will not be the last time that you come on the show. I want to thank our guest today, Carl Ralston, for being a part of this program, and I would like to thank you for joining us on Family Focus. I'm Joyce Johnson, and we will be back with more. If you have a question about any of the programs that we have here, you can email me at sunaroundtown@aol.com. It has truly been a pleasure to have you here with us today, and again, hope I'll see you at the reunion.
Thank you.
Hoping you'll be at the reunion, and I want to thank you for joining us on Family Focus.
Thank you.
You are watching WCTV, Wadsworth Community Television.